Pumpkinhead 2 Blood Wings. Man, if you don't have this Blu-ray and you like this movie, or if you want to check out this movie and you're going to buy it, man, what a great transfer. It looks fantastic. So I highly recommend this Blu-ray. I'm glad I got to watch it like that. I've seen it before, but I haven't watched that Blu-ray since I picked it up. So, getting into the movie itself. This movie is yet another revenge tale. I mean, he's a revenge demon, so I'm going to guess that all four of those are about this. I haven't seen the fourth one, so I'm not 100%, but I mean, that's the plot, so that's what he is. So, anyway, it starts off in black and white, back in the 50s. A deformed boy is picked on and beaten up by these 6 kids and killed. Flashes to present day, whatever that is in this. I think it's like 1993. And there are some young kids out looking to have a good time. They end up hitting a witch with their car. They go to her house to see if she's still alive. They end up finding this ritual to bring someone back from the dead. They go out and they resurrect Pumpkinhead with the vial of blood from the deformed kid who was killed earlier. So it's basically they're making the demon go out and get revenge, and they're not even aware they're doing it. So they're basically condemning those 6 kids from previously to die, which I thought was a cool, little spin on it. It wasn't they wanted revenge. They just so happened to unleash a revenge demon on those guys and then themselves. So I like that they changed it up. And I like that the mythology, at first I thought the mythology of what the first movie had created was not going to be followed. And then I realized that it was. And I also like that in the first Pumpkinhead, something I didn't mention, and that it also happens here, is that Pumpkinhead, even though it does look like the Pumpkinhead monster from the last one, and so does it in the next 2, it takes on a similar appearance, just some of the facial features of the person that is seeking the revenge. At the end of the first one, he starts to look like Lance Henriksen, and at the end of this one, he's kind of looks a little bit like the deformed kid. I really thought that was cool. Now, this movie has a few cool people in it that I was excited to see. You have, first and foremost, Linnea Quigley. I will always be very excited when she shows up in a movie, and she shows her tits in, and they're wonderful, and I think they may have had a boob job on them since I watched Night of the Demons recently. They looked a little bigger and a little firmer, and this movie is like 5 or 6 years older, so I don't know, maybe. You also have Soleil Moon Frye, which is Punky Brewster, if you don't know, so that was exciting. And it said somewhere in a trivia that she had to gain 20 pounds for this movie. Why? Her role doesn't call for it. She looks normal. Maybe she was just too skinny, or she didn't look old enough. She's only 17, but the kids are supposed to be 17. Some of them are like 25, but I don't know why she had to gain 25 pounds. There's also a quick bit part from Kane Hodder, and that was very cool. I was not expecting to see him at all. I barely remember anything from this movie, so it was kind of like watching it for the first time. And then it also had the character Kurt from Return of the Living Dead 3, which is arguably the best of the Return of the Living Dead series, and I'm a big fan of that series. I just so happen to love 3, so when I saw him, I was like, oh shit. So that was cool. Another couple funny things that happen in this, in reference to other movies, is number 1, they reference that the incantation that they're about to use is ripped from the Book of Shadows, and it just reminded me of how Blair Witch 2 is called Book of Shadows, and this movie has more to do with the Book of Shadows than that movie does, since there is no such object in the film. Even though I am a fan of Blair Witch 2, I know I'm like one of like 7 people out there. I just find it funny that that's the title of the movie, and there's no Book of Shadows in it. So when I heard Book of Shadows in this movie, I was like, this movie has more to do with that title than that movie does. And then Pumpkinhead, the reason this movie is called Blood Wings is that Pumpkinhead himself leaves blood wings, like he's painted with his big fat finger or something. I don't know what. But he leaves his mark, and it reminded me of, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, when he's leaving the Curse of Thorn now all of a sudden. It's just like, okay, so I guess they're doing that now. So I thought that was funny. So getting into things I liked about this movie, I thought that this movie had much better dialogue from the main kids. In the last movie I complained about how I really just didn't like the dialogue. Is the dialogue great? No. But it made me like the kids. I actually was interested, especially in the core group of kids. I enjoyed them. I actually sort of cared what happened to them. In the last film, I couldn't have given a fuck at all. So now, I like the directing in this movie a lot. Like, even though it's not a super well-made movie or anything, there's a lot of good shot selection that makes the film feel not just generic and anybody could have made it. Like, okay, now put a camera in front of them here and place it. Like, he took different shots. There's a lot of unique shots from different angles on characters when they're having conversations. It's not just dead on and from the side. It's there's a lot of different camera angles and a lot of different ways to look at it. And it's just it keeps it interesting when you're changing up shot selections. It keeps your mind, I don't know, interested in what's going on somehow. And I was like, oh, this is cool. This is nice. So I really like that. The lead chick is just adorable. And I do like that Pumpkinhead only kills who he's out for. That's happened in both of these movies now, and I hope that happens in the third and the fourth. He's a revenge demon. He is there specifically for certain people, and if there's other people around, which there usually is, they're usually too scared to do anything, and they're not trying to attack him. So I'm not sure what would happen if they tried to actually attack Pumpkinhead. But they're there, and he doesn't kill anyone who's not on his hit list, basically. He's like an assassin, and he really does a good job because he only kills who he's meant to be there for. So I really like that. Now, getting into the negatives. The witch's voice in this movie was cracking me up. It is super silly. Like, she has this really deep one, and then she has like a higher voice, and both are dumb. It just takes you out of the scene. It makes you laugh. I thought it was very poor. There's a scene where the witch's house burns down, and it's legitimately like the most pathetic house fire I've ever seen in a movie. Like, the windows are like it looks like there's like a fucking birthday cake lit with candles inside. Like, it's so bad. There's just like a little fire coming from each window, and then there's like a little tiny bit on the roof. And the kids run up and they're like, oh, can we save her? Can we save her? No way, man. It's too far gone. You can't. We gotta go. And it's like, you can't run in there? It's barely. Then the girl runs up originally. It seems like it's even less on fire, and she runs back to get her friends. And there's no fire going on in that house. And then cut to the morning, and the house is completely burnt down, and there's no charred leaves or branches or anything next to the house. It's just the rubble by itself, and there's like all this dry shrubbery all around it. None of it's burned, none of it's scorched. Somehow this entire house burnt down. It was silly. Is it a huge deal? No, but it was ridiculous. The acting, is not good. That's to be expected in a film like this, and I'd say it's probably on par with the last film. There's not a great amount of acting in either of these movies, so I was pretty much expecting that. And last thing I have to say in my negatives is that another thing I complained about in the last film, and something I complain about a lot, so I guess it really is just that important to me, is that there's just almost no gore in this movie, and the kills are almost all generic, boring, nothing unique, nothing original. Only like one is memorable with the couple, the two kids. I don't want to say it is if you haven't seen it, but I'm going to say it right now. It's a spoiler, really quick. So cover your ears for a second. The Punky Brewster and her boyfriend get like impaled to a tree on a stick, and you can uncover. I thought that was at least memorable. Did it look all that great? Was it really gory and graphic and cool? Not really, but it's really the only kill I'll remember from this film, which is sad. I thought that Pumpkinhead looked really good again. Not as good as last film because they did more away shots, full body shots with him walking around. They probably didn't have the budget to do that, but I was never taken out of it. I never thought it looked stupid. There is a moment where he picks a guy up and he throws him on a meat hook, and when he picks him up, you can clearly see the rope. Now that's probably due to the fact that this Blu-ray is so well cleaned up. You know, I remember watching Halloween, and you can see things in that movie you're not supposed to see, but it's so clean that it's like, oh, there's Michael, you know, and you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to see him yet. In the dark hallway area, you know, when he peers behind Lori in the Wallace house, that famous scene right before he, you know, cuts her arm and she falls over the stairs, you can see him before. So, you know, sometimes Blu-rays can kind of fuck up movies because it's not supposed to be that clean. But yeah, it's clearly a rope. So, but I really thought that Pumpkinhead looked great here. So, and I know that they used like the exact same costume, not costume, whatever the hell the thing is, huge prosthetic, I guess. It looks like they used the same one in the third and the fourth. So I'm looking forward to seeing this thing again. This is a series so far that I'm just kind of like, it's all right, it's fine, it's fun. You know, I'm glad I watched them, but nothing crazy exciting. A buddy of mine was just telling me that I was a little harsh on Lance Henriksen's character in the last movie, and he made some valid points that he wouldn't, you know, he might not react like I was saying that he didn't react the way I would think he should react, and regretting sending Pumpkinhead out was, you know, silly. But I mean, he had some valid points. So I don't know. I'm still just like I didn't feel it, and I can only talk on my feelings towards something. It didn't work for me. I have kids, as I always say, and you know, when it comes to that kind of shit, I just feel like I would be devastated. But I'm not him. But it just didn't work for me. So anyway, off to Pumpkinhead 3. Let's do this.